Welcome back, or welcome if this is your first time here. You've oddly stumbled across this for some weird reason in your weird searches throughout the interwebs. You've found this. You found yourself here now. I'm sorry, for starters. No, welcome. This is the SitRep, the Situation Report, aka what the fuck is going on in the world right now, aka postcards from the apocalypse. And it is the 25th of June, 2022, and it is currently 9 a.m. on the dot. Look at that. I made some sort of timing for once. It's usually a really odd time that I start these, but 9 a.m. on the dot, Saturday morning, good for me. So this is a little thing that I do every day where I go, well, most days. Obviously, I've missed a few days recently, but I try and do it most days, where I go through news articles that I've seen on the interwebs and have a look at them, pull them apart, things that catch my interest from the perspective of prepping, and in particular prepping down in this southern part of the world, down under, the great southern land. Kind of more particularly Australia, and in particular New Zealand today. Actually, quite a number of New Zealand stories coming out. But let's start with the biggin. Wait, is there anything else I need to go on with? No, I don't think so. Let's start with the big one today. Roe versus Wade. We're going to get annihilated with this sort of information on all mainstream media. I checked the mainstream medias this morning and they're flooded with it. Not surprisingly, international ones like Reuters are flooded with it. US ones are flooded with it. And even Australian ones are flooded with Roe versus Wade, even though it doesn't really pertain to us. I always find this interesting. All this kind of information that's like, this is a real hot topic. Does this actually affect Australians in any way, shape, or form? Hey, Princess Kidda 911 from Victoria. Victoria, the land of victory. I was born in Victoria. Great place. Good morning, coronavirus. Thanks for joining me again. As I was saying, it doesn't necessarily affect us here in Australia so much, but this is a big thing, and I always like to point out stuff like this and follow-on effects that's going to have. And I've been talking about civil disorder for a long time now. I've been talking about this sort of effect of civil disorder, this increased violence within our societies that we're going to start seeing, and this is a no-brainer. Admittedly, this isn't like, well, Stuart, you've done some excellent analysis on that, and I can see how you've drawn a conclusion that there might be violence from this. Well, there's going to be violence from this. There's already been violence from this. The people doing the violent, the terrorists who are doing the violent, and I'm not bandying that word around. Like, these are people who are out to create terror for for a civilian population. That's what a terrorist is. So these terrorists, I'm not saying that I'm for or against it. Okay, I'm saying people who act in this way are terrorists. Okay, if you want to argue with me on that, feel free to. As always, I really advocate for discussion and arguments and different ideas coming in at me, because I know I'm not perfect, and I know I don't know everything, and I know I have biases as well. And I'm willing to put my information out there and put it on the platter, the sacrificial platter, if you will, to have it chopped up by other people, if you are also willing to do that with yours. And that is called discourse. That is called discussion. And that's what we should have more of these days. Anyway, end rant on that. These people who have been advocating violence, who have been conducting violent attacks, who have been signaling that they're going to be violent, well, the thing that they've been talking about happening has happened, and so they are more than likely going to come out in force tonight, which is right now in the US. So I'm kind of like keeping my eye on the news sources to see when this is going to blow up. Obviously, you've got security forces instantly, as soon as this was dropped, as soon as the information was dropped that they've overturned the Roe versus Wade, instantaneously DC armed all their police, because they've had kind of almost like a mini lockdown going on there for a very long time now. They've had fences up around main buildings. They've had a lot of police presence in there, apparently. They've now come back out in riot gear. So they're all geared up, ready to roll. Fights are going to happen, potentially. I don't know. But this is something that's interesting that we should keep an eye on, see what the reaction is. We can I hope that there isn't a lot of violence, and I really hope. I've got a lot of friends in the US. I don't think any of them actually listen to this channel, but if you are in the US and you are listening to this channel, I hope that you're staying safe. I hope that you're staying away from cities, staying away from major populated areas, and also be smart about this. If you live, and I'm just gonna name it here, the people who are doing this are the left. So if you're in a left-leaning city, it is more likely to be, statistically speaking, it's just more likely to be violent in the next 24 to 48 hours. So if you are in that position, please stay safe. Please stay out of public areas. Remember, if you do have to travel through these areas, make sure that you have your grab bag. Make sure that you have yourself prepared for what might happen. Make sure you've got an escape plan or 3 in your back pocket, ready to enact and start doing this. But eyes are on the US at the moment. And always with these big story drops, these big pieces of information, I'm always like, and what else is going on here? So also keep your eye out on the news and on the subtle news on the alternative media channels to see what's going on in the world today. But that's what I want to start off with, and just get that out of the way, okay? We all know what's happening. It should be filling your feeds right now. If you're like me and you look at news sources, it should be just filling the news sources no matter where you are. Yeah. And again, I'm not weighing in on the actual argument. I'm just saying this is what's happening. All right, let's just jump into some stories in no particular order from here on in. EU. The EU is buying more South African coal than ever. So this is an interesting thing. What we've seen is the exposure of the fraudulent rhetoric of the green industry. And I've said this many times, I am a big proponent of green energies. I'm a big proponent of self-reliant or self-sufficient systems on a whole. So if we can build something that uses renewable energies, yeah, I'm all for it. We should do it. However, I'm not an idiot, and I can see how much energy can be produced at any given time. And I can also see how much energy we use in the Western society. And there is a huge shortfall in that. So this idea that we can go build back better in 2022 and switch over and Greta says it's okay, so let's do it and go straight to green energy is just, it's part of this mythos of some of the parts of modern society today, where people are just like, oh, why don't we just stop using money and then everything will be cool. You're an idiot. Shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Why don't you study history? Why don't you look at what is actually going on? Why don't you look at how much energy you're using as a human being saying that and just living and eating whatever you're eating right now, and how much energy we actually require? Because there's a huge shortfall. We need to phase off fossil fuels. I believe it'll take a good 10 to 15 years to do it if we did it properly, without pain, without hurt. That it doesn't matter what I think anymore. That's not going to happen. Time's up. We've screwed the pooch on this one. We're coming into hard times. We're in a hard landing, not in the economy, not just in the economy, not just in our food system, not just in our energy system, not in just our socio-political systems, in everything. We're hard landing right now. If you haven't figured that out, if you're still in the phase where you're like, oh, I'm floating in my seat, you're not floating. The plane is going down. So prepare thyself. Start thinking about this and what we need to start doing. I've seen a few governments come out and go, oh, what we need to do is more of a spread out network where we can build in lithium battery systems and we can pool people's power energy resources. I'm like, I don't even know if that would work. It works on a community level. It works on a small scale. And that's really what we should be concentrating on. First off, individual households. We need to be thinking about, can we support our own electrical needs by either increasing the amount of energy that we create through a number of systems? Might be solar, might be wind, might be water or hydro. It might be even a mixture of the two, where we can use solar energy to pump water to tanks on our roof and use them as water batteries, essentially, and then run that water down through turbines to create energy to power the house. So we passively are building water up onto a higher point. Anyway, you get the point. There's a whole heap of things we can be doing as individuals, and we should be doing as individuals right now. Once we do that, once we secure ourselves as individuals, then we start to connect with other people and go like, hey, I've got a surplus. I've got more battery power than I'm using. The other thing you can also look at is how I'm using electricity. Can I curtail that? Can I bring that down? Can I make my energy usage more efficient? My energy usage more efficient, and thus bring down my total energy output or consumption. And then if I've got a surplus in energy, then I can look at cross-loading that. So then we can start talking, maybe with our neighbors and going, hey, maybe we can all cross-load our energy. And, if you're using more one day, it flows over to you. And if I'm using my power tools today, it'll flow over to me. And we can start to extend that out. Maybe we can gather in communities and have town meetings and go, hey, why don't we all pitch in? Why don't we all harness solar power from our houses and feed that back into a grid? And that centralized grid is within this town. And that way we can make sure that everyone in this town gets power. And that's all we have to worry about, really. And if all the towns are doing that, we don't have to worry about this big government coming in and going like, well, no, everyone's got to have power. It's like, no, we got that sorted, bro. Just fuck off. Like, just go twiddle your thumbs or something. Or, worry about international conflict or something else. Like, get out of our lives, please. Anyway, what we're seeing with throughout Europe, they've been exposed. They've been progressively shutting down things like nuclear power. They've been shutting down coal power plants. And they've been kind of filling in with this gas out of Russia. All of a sudden that gets turned off. They've got a huge problem, and a lot of them are switching back to coal. Germany's just pulled the trigger, and they're like, coal, fire up all the coal plants. We actually got to build more coal plants. We just need more coal. Well, EU on a whole is doing this. They're apparently South Africa is where they're getting their coal from. But on top of this, Russia is still earning more than 100 million every day. Every day they're earning $100 million in oil sales just to Europe. Just to Europe. How are those sanctions working right now? Yeah, they're not. So again, these sanctions are really like a spoke in the wheels of the world's economy, and we're all falling off the bike a la Biden, crashing into the pavement. And it's hurting everyone because, again, I'm telling you that the fuel here in Australia is, my diesel here is $2.40 a litre. That's ridiculous. How much Russian oil do we use here in Australia again? I think the correct answer is fuck all. That's how much. Where'd you go? Where's my New Zealand stories? Bear with me for a sec while I find stuff about New Zealand. They've disappeared. What's that? So New Zealand's only oil refinery is being decommissioned. So this was sent to me, and there was a bit of a discussion sent with it from one of my main sources through Instagrams. They've always got their eye on New Zealand and Australia. And they basically said, hey, have a look at this New Zealand's only oil refinery. Now, remember me talking about this off the top of my head. Australia went from 10 a few years back, and we're down to 2 oil refineries. We get most of our oil products, petrol, diesel, things like that, refined overseas. And that's like, we're looking like Singapore sort of area. So it's coming down from there, from Asia. We're very reliant on that oil coming in from there. Even though, we might even have some here ourselves. Never mind that. We've got lots of products here that we pull out of the ground here and then send them overseas across the board that get refined overseas and come back to us. So New Zealand's only oil refinery is being decommissioned. And this is some of the effects of this. This is what we're seeing here is government policies that are slowly crippling this industry, that are bringing it down, economic effects where it's cheaper to actually import it from overseas, even though that might not common sense wise make sense. That's what we do. And on top of that, we just had 2 years of lockdown where people weren't driving around and the demand on fuel went down. And so, rightly put, the source who sent this to me had a little commentary on this, and they said very rightly, I believe, that when you couple these things together, you've got refineries that are on the edge. They're like just making bank as it is, like they're just getting across the line month to month, because of those economic factors where it's cheaper to do it overseas. And instead of being helped out by the local government, they're kind of being hindered by local government. Again, a whole heap of factors being in there, environmental factors being one of them. And then you get this enforced economic downturn, this fake drop in demand, which was forced upon us by our government, who locked us down without our will, without our vote on it. And now this happens. So this is going to have, I imagine, huge effects for the fuel supply within New Zealand, being that it's all going to be foreign now. They're going to be totally reliant on fuel coming out of Asia. I'm sure nothing is going to happen in Asia in the next little minute or two. You'll be right. God forbid Taiwan kicks off and that entire area gets locked down, and New Zealand's like, hey, Australia, cuz, what's going on? Hey, you got any of that diesel there, bro? I could just a tank or two would be great. Or socks, that'd be awesome. Ciao, bro. I apologize to all my New Zealand friends for that accent. People just like, unfollow. Nah, not taking that. I'm not taking that. This is going to be huge, though, and just on an economic effect for the small scale, or in and around the towns in and around this place, which is Northland's Marsden Point Oil Refinery. You're going to get a whole heap of people obviously losing their job. You're going to get towns that are kind of reliant on those people earning money. So all that's going to have a huge effect economically for that area of New Zealand. So if you are in and around that area of New Zealand, start thinking about that. It's obviously, I mean, you would have heard of this, but yeah, I would really start to be thinking about what you can do to insulate yourself from that effect. Big industries like this is what we're seeing now, is not just collapses of your local convenience store went out of business, and this restaurant and this restaurant and this restaurant went out of business because we had lockdowns for 2 years. We're seeing entire industries now. We're getting the catch up. This is the bill to be paid, where people were thinking like, oh yeah, you can lock people down for 2 years and the government will just throw out money and it'll be all cool. Well, if you haven't heard of it yet, there's a number of different terms that fall under this, but zombie businesses, essentially that's what we're seeing. Businesses that probably were a little bit shaky, had that lockdown, were like, no, we're collapsed. And the government's like, here's money. Whew. And they're throwing money at people too and going, quick, put them into these businesses. And these businesses are buoyed up. But now the reality is hitting and these businesses are finally collapsing. It's going to be epic. Kieran, how you going? We've had free power in the past. Why can't we learn about this instead of employing the power available in these bullshit anti-humane systems we're all contributing to? Well, that's a good point. I don't know if we've had free power. I think most of the power for most of human existence has been human power. Then we kind of realized that we could harness a couple of things. Maybe first the horse or the mule, horse or something. Then maybe we could water, and then we figured out fire. Anyway, that's the normal narrative. I don't know if you're going down some other alternative narrative there. What else is happening in New Zealand? There was a couple other stories that were happening there. Where are they? Freezing nights put New Zealand on brink of electricity crisis. Ooh, we all know about that in Australia, don't we? Those pesky electricity crises. What is happening with our electricity infrastructure? Good question. What is happening there in New Zealand? I don't know. Doesn't look good though, from any any stretch of the imagination. Bad things happening there. We've all seen this. We've seen it in Australia recently. And it doesn't point to anything good. What it points to is a rotten foundation, a rotten core of our systems that we've built here. And we're finally starting to realize that when all the cheap inputs, when all the easy inputs get taken away, all of a sudden we're left with nothing. And that's a big problem. Another New Zealand story here. 4 injured in New Zealand after mass stabbing attack. That's a bummer. Where are we? Farmer Crescent in Lower Hutt. Yeah, off memory, Lower Hutt. I think I've been there. That's in Wellington? Correct me if I'm wrong. Any of my New Zealand compatriots, my cuzzies over there. But Lower Hutt, I believe, is in Wellington. So horrible attack, a large kitchen knife. Not good. Not good at all. Hopefully those people are okay. Not sure what the circumstances of this story are, but never like to see this. Again, there's a couple of things I want to point out of this, though. I'm not just reporting this stuff to put doom and gloom into your day. What do we want to learn from this? How can we adapt? How can we become better human beings, more prepared for an uncertain future? That's what the whole gist of this is. That's why I get up here and say this sort of stuff to you guys. So we need to be prepared. We need to be prepared for attacks. This idea that we don't have guns in Australia, so we're not going to get attacked. No, it's not true. New Zealand. New Zealand. I'm not sure about your current gun laws. I know they did get changed recently, but up until then, you had a lot more lenient gun laws and a lot more, I would say, common sense gun laws than Australia has, where ours are quite restrictive and sometimes just nonsensical. I.e. silencers, okay? Or silencers. Let me tell you about silencers, okay? First off, it's not a fucking silencer. It's a suppressor, okay? That's what we used to call it in the military, suppressors, because that's the correct term. It does not silence a gun. That does not exist. Even the most silent of the silencers doesn't even stop the noise. Okay, it's not like the movies with James Bond, that's total bullshit. That's total Hollywood stuff there. What it does is it cuts down the reverberation of the sound. It brings down the decibels and stops some of the muzzle flash, so it's not seen as easily, which is a fantastic idea. If you were, say, I don't know, in the perspective of someone like myself who goes hunting a lot, but you hunt on private land or you hunt in state forests after going through the appropriate hurdles and hoops that you jump through to do it legally, it would make a lot of sense to not crack off one shot, which actually disrupts all the wildlife and all the farm life and all the other humans who are living within a 5-kilometer radius. And you could easily just have a little attachment on the front there that would bring that down dramatically. Now, that's what you have in New Zealand. You can do that. In fact, when I was hunting in New Zealand, they were like, "What? You don't hunt with a suppressor? That's rude. Don't farmers get pissed off?" I'm like, "Yeah, well, farmers do kind of get pissed off sometimes, I guess." It's like, "Yeah, man, it's rude. Why wouldn't you have one?" Anyway, so off memory, I think New Zealand gun laws have been more restricted recently, especially post Christchurch attack. And this is, again, more proof to me that the weapon is only one part of this. People are so focused on the weapon. People go, "Oh, mass shooting attacks, mass shooting attacks." At no point did people go, "Whoa, damn, we had a vehicle ramming attack in Melbourne. Should we do something about vehicles? No. Should we do something about kitchen knives? Should we restrict kitchen knives? Maybe we should make them butter knives only. People can only have butter knives from now on. Unless you register your name with government authorities and the police, then you can own an actual kitchen knife. But you have to prove that you use it to cut steak. That's the thing. People will find a way. People will find a way. UK is a classic example. Oh, there's a gun attack. Take the guns off the people. No guns. You're not allowed any guns. Oh, there's knife attacks. Okay, restrict knives. They did this. They restricted as best they could people buying knives. People started throwing acid on other people. What? Like, people will find a way. It's it's not necessarily the weapon. Weapon is one part of it. It's the human beings that are the problem. We're creating a society where people feel that they have to do these sorts of attacks, or for some reason, I don't know what the motivation behind this one was, but people are becoming violent in nature, or want to lash out, or want to do these sorts of things. It's crazy. Anyway, that aside, that little rant aside, I just want to put out a reminder that, again, what we need to be as human beings, as fully functioning human beings, is to be aware of our surroundings. This is something that frightens me daily, that I see so many people do. They're not aware of their surroundings. People walking around staring at their phones, people having their headphones in a public space. And I always say this: public spaces are threat spaces. And I'm not saying that there is an exact threat there, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm saying the potential for threat is there. When you're locked in your safe house and you're as secure as you can be, then that threat level is probably at the lowest that it'll be. But as soon as you open your door and you walk out there, there's cars driving around. There's 1 to 2 tons of twisted steel hurtling down a road at 60 to 80 Ks an hour. That's a threat, okay? There are other people around. That's a threat, okay? So you need to be aware when you're out in the world. That's all I'm saying. And I'm not like asking anything crazy here. You are here by fact that your ancestors were survival experts. You have built within you hundreds of thousands of years of survival technology. It is all there. Just allow it to be. I'm not saying walk around with ninja hands on, with like freaking out. I'm saying be relaxed. Just allow information to come into your body. Your brain is actually built to do that. You've got all these sensors. You're constantly picking up pieces of information. Don't just block it out by staring at something in front of you and putting headphones in. Ban bare hands, because they can kill. These hands are registered weapons. They're not. S. Wood, hi from England. G'day over in England, in sunny England. You probably are sunny at the moment. You're in your summer, aren't you? Hope everything's going all right for you guys over there in the motherland, with our illustrious head of state, the Queen, who's still on our coins. Let me prove that to you. Here is an Australian kangaroo, 2021, 1 ounce silver coin. Bum, bum, bum. And who's that on the back? So that's Australian. That's kangaroo. It was made in Perth. What's the Queen? That's our Queen. I don't know why I said that. Hey, silver's a cool thing to have right now. Looking at commodities and stuff like that. Let's talk about commodities. Here's an interesting story that someone actually sent to me from, again, my main source, from Zero Hedge, which, if you've ever listened to me before, you know I like reading Zero Hedge. It was a article from it was written by Von Greenen. I don't know how to pronounce that last name, but anyway, bit of a gold buff, talking about what's happening in the economy, talking about what's happening in the world too, and what's going to happen soon. It was a lot of doom and gloom. It was a hard read. You're like, ooh, this is not going to be good, is it? But basically, like every other gold buff, they're like, but gold's going to do well. Look, in all honesty, if you've been investing in gold in the last 2 years, or if you invested in gold 2 years ago, or even 5 years ago, and also invested that same amount in the stocks, then you're doing a lot better in gold. And that's not always normal. That is an anomaly, okay, to what usually happens with gold. Gold's known as the most boring thing that you could invest in, because it's sort of like, where stocks are like, yeah, whoa, yeah, whoa. But anyway, that aside, a lot of doom and gloom in this article, but there was a lot of really interesting things that came out of it. But I just want to touch on this, and I'll repeat this at the end of today. Your most important assets are your brain, heart, and soul. There are always opportunities for individuals who apply those assets wisely. And as always, in periods of crisis, being with and helping family and friends is your most important task. So just remember that. I'll come back to that. But we've got to look after each other. Like I was saying, it's all about that community. And even when I was talking about electricity generation, it starts at home. How can I build enough electricity for me and my family? And then we start to branch out. How do we connect that electricity and cross share it? Same with food. How do I grow enough here? And what with the surplus, how do I then swap that around with other people? Because if we can make sure that we can secure enough people in our area, then it doesn't really matter what's going to happen in the world if we can secure ourselves. S. Wood from England says, everything is getting expensive, but getting by. Worried about winter. Yes, right now, weather is lovely, thanks. That's what I'm seeing. I talked about this briefly yesterday, S. Wood, about how a lot of international sources from the Northern Hemisphere, so UK, from all throughout Europe, there's some Scandinavian stuff, there was some American stuff, some Canadian stuff, but a lot of that Northern Hemisphere stuff in the news seems to be saying, hey, winter's going to be bad. And I'm like, aren't you guys just hitting summer? Like, you're really starting to look forward now, which in one sense is really good that mainstream media, and these are mainstream media sources I'm talking about, mainstream media is starting to look forward 6 months, which shocks me. I'm like, whoa, you guys can barely look forward 6 minutes, let alone 6 months. But it also tells me, like, whoa, things must be pretty dire if mainstream media is already looking at winter and going like, guys, things are going to be tight here. Things are going to be pretty rough. So yeah, I'm thinking about you guys over there. Keep prepping. That's all I can say. That's all I say anyway. But really start to think about what you can do right now, because you're in peak growing season-ish, really, depending on where you are. But right now you can be putting a lot of plants in the ground. You can be putting a lot away. And yes, things are expensive, but more than likely, I would say 90% to 95% chance that things are going to be more expensive in 6 months' time. So buy stuff now, put it away now. But thanks for sending that message. That was good information. I always like to hear it of people on the ground in these areas, how they're doing. Anyway, what was I talking about? Where was I? Let's talk about another little message that was sent to me by a close personal friend, that Insta chick, who may or may not be on right now, who's been sending me some cool screenshots and stuff this morning. This one was from another friend of ours, Mason Taylor, who runs a company called Super Feast, which make great medicinal mushroom and herbal extract supplements, which I highly recommend. So look out, superfeast.com.au. Go check them out. Great company. I have actually worked with them several times in the past. Great friends, great stuff. And I use it daily, pretty much. I used it today in my morning coffee. So there you go. Anyway, Mason sent this. He's been getting messages. He gets cacao in. He gets products in from around the world. He gets cacao in from different parts of the world. He just got sent this photos of civil unrest in Ecuador. I actually, side note, I used to own and run a protein bar company, and one of the main products we used in there was cacao from Ecuador. So I'm quite familiar with this farming process, what goes on there. Ecuador is a really interesting one, actually. If you look at where companies get their cacao products from, cacao butter and cacao powder primarily, Ecuador is by far one of the best places they can get it from. And this is really, really interesting story, and I'm going to go on a tangent here, but I think it's a very good learning point for us here, because I just got reminded of this reading this story. Now, Ecuador went down the path. We're like, hey, Western people like cacao. Let's start making cacao, and that can be our main thing. So they just stripped bare whatever they were growing and just grew cacao, and they were making bank. They were making lots of money. And then some disease came in, and it entirely destroyed their cacao. like entirely. The whole thing was gone. And they went from having like, yeah, we got money to, hey, we're broke and we're dying over here and we're in economic collapse. This is bad. So they got together and they said, all right, look, let's all just start growing our own food again. And so everyone started growing food. And then quite cleverly, quite a few people started going on, like, let's grow cacao, but let's do it smartly this time. So what they did was they started growing cacao in and around other crops that they were growing. So they'll grow food patches. Every person like would have a food patch in their front yard or whatever, and also some cacao. Farmers would have cacao, but also other trees and things growing around. And it wasn't enough for any one person to be like, I'm a cacao farmer. But then one person in a community, in a village, could go around and go, hey, I'm collecting all the cacao. And then they would go and then they would build a little village or community cacao production facility, and they would like, do whatever they're going to do with the cacao, and then they would sell it off, and that money would then go back out to the community. So it's really, really fascinating thing. And as a result, they can't use any fertilizer, they can't use any artificial products or anything like that. They can't monocrop their cacao, but they make really good cacao, like the absolute top quality cacao, and it goes back to the individual farmers. It's fantastic stuff. So think about that next time you're buying cacao products. Have a look at it, see where this cacao comes from. If it comes from Venezuela, chances are it doesn't get grown like that. Hi, Lauren. How you doing? Anyway, photos from Ecuador here of riots, of civil unrest happening, and of farmers destroying the harvest of other farmers. So they're attacking each other now. Things are obviously quite bad in Ecuador. Add that to your list of places that are going to shit at the moment. It's almost like every day there's a new place that pops up into my radar. I was like, oh, by the way, hey, this place is also having a lot of civil unrest at the moment. Again, this is what we're going to start seeing. This is going to disrupt supplies of cacao coming out and around the world. What does that mean for us? No chocolate. That disturbs me. I was once sitting on a huge supply of cacao butter. I left it somewhere. I can't remember where in my many moves. It's out there somewhere. I'm hoping somebody took it and ate it or turned it into chocolate. Yeah, this is crazy. So yeah, these photos here that are being, I'll repost this. I'll jump on there and repost this after this. These photos, but it's crazy stuff that we're starting to see here. People turning on each other, and this is what I'm talking about. That in any threat environment, whatever it is, whatever the threat is, humans are also the threat. If the threat is humans, then other humans doing other stuff will be the threat. If the threat is, I don't know, an earthquake, humans will be a threat. Humans are always the biggest threat in any situation. You need to consider that, especially if you live in a high density area. All right, what other good news is happening around the world? What was that? Okay. Ooh, this was a fun one. Greek state TV blasted for showing how to steal gas. So apparently a Greek state TV channel, one of their presenters got on there and showed people how to siphon gas, how to steal gas, as in petrol. Oh, damn. That's not cool. It's not cool. I don't recommend that anyone steal fuel. But again, another telling sign of where we're going right now. When a state television, I mean, this person got smashed for it, but the fact that they did it in the first place is a pretty telling sign. This is where we're at as a world. Gas prices are getting so high. I keep saying gas prices. I'm reading too much American shit. Petrol, fuel prices are getting so high that people are thinking about stealing fuel. Yeah, it's a good little cost-saving trick. I thought that was funny though. Just as a side note, I do have a siphon. It's not for that purpose. It's not specifically for that purpose. This actually, from a serious standpoint, this might be something that you want to consider having in your preps. The siphon I actually have is for water. All right. I use it for water. There's certain water storage devices that I have that I'll need to siphon out of. And there might be other reasons to siphon water from certain things. But a fuel siphon might be something that you might want to seriously consider having in your preparations, in your stores. Okay, there could be an occasion where you might have to use it. I'm not saying for illegal purposes like this, and I certainly don't advocate anyone stealing fuel. Me personally, as somebody who stores up fuel, it's something that I think about, and I'm thinking about right now, looking at fuel go up and up and up in my local area, and knowing that my local area has low crime, but crime is existent here. There are a certain element here, as there are in any town, especially rural towns. You get people who are on drugs. You get people who are just Dero bogans. If you don't know what either of those two words are, then you're clearly not Australian. So yeah, anyway, you Dero bogans who do steal stuff. So this is something that concerns me. So that's why I've got it locked away. It's not easily accessible. It's not open to people. They can't see it. It's not just sitting there. But this is something that I think about. Also, there's a locking mechanism on my fuel cap that I actually have to put keys in and unlock it to get my fuel cap off. So all this sort of stuff is things you might want to consider, because this is the sort of stuff that we're starting to deal with now. Again, welcome to the postcards from the apocalypse. If you haven't figured it out yet, people are like, "Oh, when's the shit hit the fan going to happen?" It's happening. We're in it. Like this is it. Welcome. Have you been asleep for a little while? What's going on? If you store diesel, so this is Hose T John. Hose T John is from Norway, living on some sort of land. I can't remember how much. Sorry, but doing some homesteady stuff, some cool stuff. So Hose T John says, if you store diesel, store industrial tractor diesel. Normal diesel has bio in it and can last for only half a year or so. Industrial for years and years. Keep out of the sun and above freezing temperature. Yes. So if you're storing any fuel product, you need to think about how you store it. Now, from everyone that I've talked to about the diesel we have in Australia, I'm not sure about differentiation of industrial tractor diesel or anything like that. So maybe somebody could fill me in with that in Australia. But as far as I know, we use the same diesel. There's one standard of diesel within Australia. I could be way off the mark on that, but as far as I know, there's one standard of diesel. And everyone that I've talked to said it will last a year easily at the same efficiency or potency as when you got it. So the issue is here when you're storing fuels is, can something happen to the fuel when you store it? The answer is yes, and there are a number of reasons why that can happen. Primarily within diesel, if there is something else in the diesel, as Hose T John is correctly saying here, bio in it, it can grow like a mold in it or a bacteria in it, which is going to not only make it less efficient, it's going to pretty much fuck your engine if you run it through it. So that's the issue. Now, you can get additives to this stuff. You can put additives in there that are going to extend its life. So for diesel, all my diesel, I would not store it for longer than 12 months. And I rotate my diesel relatively regularly. Like the longest I've stored diesel, I want to say, is probably 6, maybe 8 months that I've had it stored. But I usually rotate it. So I've got a system of rotating it. I do have some longer store stuff, but I will start rotating through that soon as well. So you do have to consider that. Consider rotating it. Consider putting additives into it for storing it. And petrol's a whole different game. Petrol is much shorter. Okay, diesel's actually relatively stable compared to petrol. So with petrol, you've got to really think about putting those additives in it, and you really shouldn't push it past. If you've just got petrol in a jerry in a container, really, like, don't push it past 6 months, and you should really think about rotating it after 3. That's my recommendation. But certainly, don't let it freeze. Keep it out in the sun, as Hose T John said. That's definitely things. All the same sort of things. Like I said, there's bacteria growth that can happen in there. So, well, what would I do with food? What would I do with water? If I wanted water to stay okay, I'd put it in a cool, dark place where it is as temperature regulated as possible. So that's the same thing that I think about with my fuel. Obviously, I don't store my fuel with my food though. That's, they're very, very separate. There's a fuel area and there's that's very far away from my food. Lauren, the word Darrow dropped on a SitRep. Yeah. Yep. It's that kind of day. It is that kind of day. Anyway, don't steal petrol. Don't do it, kids, unless you have to. Unless it's the zombie apocalypse, EMPs hit or something like that, and for some reason your vehicle is okay. A lot of vehicles out there with a lot of fuel in them. Maybe all vehicles are dead, not moving or something like that. That's why you might need a siphon. Maybe you use a generator that requires fuel. So that's another reason why you might want to siphon fuel. All right, get on with it. Oh my God, there's so many stories this morning. I thought it was going to be a real short one this morning. I always say that, don't I? EU and NATO appear to be forming a bloc for war against Russia. Duh. That's from Lavrov. On top of that, too, NATO and many Pacific area countries seem to be forming a bloc specifically again for a war against China and Russia. So that's also in there. And then on top of that, where is it? This was a story sent by Lauren, which was from an account called Arriving Somewhere with Matt J, which is an account I recommend as well. So if you're not onto that, jump onto that one. He's a funny dude. He put up in his stories here more news about this. I mentioned this yesterday, this BRICS summit. So the Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa summit, where they all got together. There's a nice little photo there of them all holding hands or shaking hands or doing whatever. You can see them all there, all the bigwigs doing their thing. And like I said, Brazil, India, Russia, China, South Africa, maybe a little bit less so South Africa, but those other ones especially, huge land masses, huge resources within those countries, huge population centers within those countries. So you're looking at 40% of the world's population within those 5 countries. So do you think they've got some sway? Do you think they've got some power? And if they allied together, do you think they could, probably tell the rest of the world what to do? I do. But again, this is more of this conflagration of this. BRICS isn't new, by the way. This is something that, especially if you've been in the prepper community, you would have probably heard about at least 5 years ago, because it's been around for quite some time now. But what we're seeing now is much more importance placed on it, especially when we think about that middle eye there, that India. Where are they going to go? What are they up to, India? They're shoring up ties there. They're also shoring up ties with Australia. India, what are you up to? Doing your own thing. China urges NATO to stop trying to start a new Cold War or messing up the world, from their Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So they've come out with some strong rhetoric again. They're loving it. They're loving it in the last couple of days, aren't they? Just bandying these words around. NATO has already messed up Europe and stopped messing up the Asia Pacific in the world, a spokesman said on Thursday. I just got a weird message from my brother who just said, he sent me a photo and it said, I haven't seen the photo yet. It said, finally, it has happened. He lives in WA, Western Australia. And we always talk about how Western Australia is trying to secede from the rest of Australia. And he just sent me a message. He said, finally, it's happened. We have Emperor McGowan. That'll be an interesting one. See what he's done there. See what he's done today. Have they finally seceded, left Australia? And do we have West Australia? Last rumblings I heard of it were maybe they were going to try and form a coalition with Northern Territory as well. Secede from the rest of us. Just leave the rest of us to sink in our own filth over here in the east. Good on them. All right, what else is happening in the world? Germany warns entire industries could stop due to gas shortage. So again, coming off that story yesterday that I was talking about with Germany. What? Sorry, my dog's annoying me again. Germany worrying about this gas shortage. I haven't seen if the gas has actually been turned back on yet, but they are pretty worried. It's pretty obvious to them right now that they are struggling. And I mean, they as in Germany, they're struggling without Russian gas, and I'm sure Russian oil as well. So they clearly can't live without it. If they were to turn it off, Russia knows this. I'm pretty sure Russia's very well aware of it. So this could be a big linchpin. I can't see this going anywhere good for this part of the world. I can't see it de-escalating things. If Russia turns off the gas to Germany or to any of the countries really in the EU will use it as an excuse to increase conflict within that area. And then who knows where that's going to leave. Hey, dog, how you going? Do you think I've been on long enough? Are you saying like, hey, Dad, you've talked to these other people long enough. Now come and play with me. All right, gang. I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to wrap it up. Kendra said so. So as always, if you've got any questions, shoot them through to me. I'll try and answer them to the best of my ability. But I spent a bit of time yesterday doing a bit more gardening. I'm going to spend a bit more time doing that this morning. Pulled out about half of my potato patch, which is really late to do it here in Australia because it's freezing cold. But I'm still getting good potatoes out of it. So I love potatoes. In other news, what's that creep's name? Bill Gates. Bill Gates has bought up like a horrific amount of land in the US, in and around the US, and has planted allegedly mainly potatoes. Think about that. I always say, like, watch what these cluey Illuminati people are doing, these super rich people. Watch what they're doing and where they're buying, where they're investing, and then like start to think about why they might be doing that. Potatoes, get on it. So anyway, yeah, get in your gardens today. Get in your gardens if you can. Start growing stuff. I'm going to be putting in a whole bunch more seedlings, trying part 2 of this very failed experiment thus far for winter crops. My last one got destroyed by the dog, actually. She jumped in the garden, ran around in there and squashed them all. But got to keep trying. Got to keep trying, right? Got to keep putting stuff in. So that's what I'm going to keep doing. So I'm going to leave you with this quote again. I'll just read off this from the story from Zero Hedge. Ron Gruenen. I can't remember the guy's name. Anyway, it doesn't matter. He was basically saying that there's going to be mass devastation. Those who recognized me and told my friends who were with me, blah, blah, physical gold. But remember that any protection or insurance must be acquired before disaster hits you. And I quote to finish off how he ended his story here again. Your most important assets are your brain, your heart, and your soul. These are always opportunities for individuals who apply those assets wisely. I want to repeat that. There are always opportunities for individuals who apply those assets wisely. And as always, in periods of crisis, being with and helping family and friends is your most important task. All right, so that's what I'm going to leave you with today. Being with and helping your family and friends. That's the best thing that we can do right now. It's not all doom and gloom. It is opportunity for those of us who have what it takes to rise now. So let's all do that, and let's all do that together. Let's encourage each other. Let's help each other out as much as possible. Until next time, as I said, keep your eyes open, keep your head on a swivel, keep aware of what's happening around you, keep preparing, and as always, Semper Paratus.